Hi, third graders. Who's ready for a little Wacky Hair Wednesday? I hope you guys had fun getting your hair ready for today. Here's what we're doing. So we have math and reading as usual. And then today for writing, we're actually going to start poetry, which is just a really short writing unit, but it's pretty fun. And then you guys are going to practice getting into Google Classroom today because that's where you're going to produce your writing. So you're going to do the rough draft on paper, and then you're going to do your final draft typing it. So if you haven't already practiced getting into Google Classroom, today would be the day. Happy Wacky Hair Wednesday, and I will see you in our reading Zoom. Hi guys, for math today, we are going to learn about area. So you need your packet, you need your workbook, and let's go ahead and do a quick review. We've been working on perimeter for the last few days, which is the distance around something. So we drew some shapes here and we counted the length of each side, and then we added up the length of each side to get the total length all the way around. So we used the example of, here's Fluffy the dog, and we needed to create a fence for Fluffy, but what was the length of the wood that we needed in order to build that fence? Now today we're talking about we're talking about area today, which is the space inside. So we did the fence around it, that's perimeter, but area is all of these squares on the inside. So if I wanted to put some grass down for Fluffy so that she could run around and have something other than just dirt to run on, how much grass would I need? And we measure that in square units, so square feet, square inches, and using these little squares here. So I'm going to use these examples that I had the other day. So what I mean by that is areas are all these squares on the inside here. So last time we measured perimeter, so what was the length of this side, what was the length of this side. Now we're seeing how much does it take to fill all this on the inside. So the easiest way is I'm just going to count the squares. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now I could keep counting, or I could use my skip counting because this is a rectangle. Here's 10, 20, 30. So the area of this shape right here is 30 square units because we are counting the squares on the inside. And there are 30 squares, so we call it 30 square units. Now, if I was to come down here, what is the area of this one? How many squares on the inside? 1, 2, 3, 4. The area equals 4 square units. And it's as simple as that, you guys. We're just counting the squares on the inside. There's a couple other ways that we can do it where if there are not squares on the inside, and we're going to learn 2 methods tomorrow in our math Zoom class. But today we're just going to focus on how many squares are on the inside. So let's go ahead and practice. We're going to turn to workbook page 177. Okay, and this is just saying exactly what I said. The number of square units needed to cover a figure without overlapping is called area. So none of these squares are on top of each other. They're all right next to each other. You can use grid paper to help you find the area of a figure. So grid paper are the square paper here. So you count the units, and this particular rectangle, there were 10 squares. So the area is 10 square units. This one is not a rectangle, but again, they just counted the squares, and there are 8 square units. Let's do a couple together. This rectangle has blank square units. We got to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It has 12 square units. It has an area of 12 square units. Now this particular one, there's nothing on the inside, so we're counting the shaded box squares. And we've been numbering all the boxes, but you don't necessarily have to number them. You can just count them as you go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The shaded figure has 10 square units. It has an area of 10 square units. Now I'd like you guys to try these ones. How many squares? Remember that you're labeling it square units. And we say units because that's just a way to measure something when you don't know if it's a centimeter or a mile or a foot. And so unless it specifically says 3 feet, we just use this term units, which is just a general term. So then you're going to figure out this one, square units, and again, square units. And this one's tricky because there's a couple, it's not exactly a perfect rectangle. You're just counting those squares. It gets a little tricky on the back here because if you notice, some of these shapes have half squares. So again, here you're going to count the square units. Please be sure that you are labeling all your work, square units, as you go. Now for a shape like this, there are full squares here. You can count those, but then I see 2 half squares. So how do I count that? I know that 2 halves make 1 whole. So I see 1, 2, 3, and then together these 2 would make 4. So this is 4 square units. And again, over here, 2 halves make a whole, 2 halves make a whole. Now at the bottom, you are no longer counting. You're not going to count how many squares because these are all the exact same. You are going to draw a figure using this area. Now it can look a shape like this where it's not a perfect square. It could look like a shape like this, or it could be a rectangle, but it has to have 12 square units. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's my shape because it has 12 squares. You get to make whatever shape you want, but it has to have 12 square units. Then do one that has 18 square units, 25 square units, and 30 square units. Double check your work, go back and count, and make sure that you counted correctly. That is your first job. Then we're gonna go back and visit Fluffy here in her yard. There we are. And the other day you guys measured perimeter. So what was the length around the outside of Fluffy's yard? Today you are counting the inside. So we're going to figure out the area. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10. So you could go ahead and count all of these squares. The problem is that we have glued on top of them. But my particular shape here looks a lot like an array. I have equal rows, I have equal columns. I have a perfect rectangle. So I could, if I wanted to, do a multiplication problem. 10 times 11 in order to get my area. I could do that. Or I could just add up all the rows. So I have 11 in this row, and I could add 11 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I could add it up 10 times, which we know is the same as doing multiplication, just that repeated addition. Those are two different ways, or you could go ahead and count and just try to make sure that you get all of those behind. So those are a couple ways. So you're figuring out what is the area of Fluffy's yard here. Mine's 110 square units. And that's it, guys. Today for writing, we are going to start poetry. Now, I'm sure that you have done poetry before, or you've read a poem, or you're a little bit familiar with poetry. But poetry is such a fun way to do writing because all of those rules that we've been talking about in writing, use your capitals, use your periods, does your words make sense? Can you read it aloud? And the nouns and the verbs, do they match? You get to take all that and throw it out the window with poetry. It's such a fun way to write, and you get to put it in whatever you're thinking into words, in whatever color you want, whatever shape you want. It could look drastically different from person to person. So we're going to try to write a couple different things, a couple different poems. But first, I just kind of want to show you what poetry can look like. So I have a few books that I absolutely love, and I'm going to show you what poetry can look like in all of the different forms and how fun it can be. And then I will show you what we're going to be working on. So we're going to look through some poems today and do a little scavenger hunt, looking for words that rhyme, looking for comparisons, careful word choice. And then we're going to write an acrostic poem, which I know that you guys are familiar with, but the difference is today we're going to be publishing it in Google Classroom. So you guys are going to be doing a little bit of typing as well. So stay tuned and let's look at some poetry. Okay, here are some of my favorite books that I use when I teach poetry. And there's even another special one that I will read you next week. But poetry can look so different. It can look like, these kind of look like paragraphs, but they're called stanzas. Just a bunch of stanzas. It can look like a shape, you guys. Look at this. This one's called I Was Walking in a Circle, and they wrote their poem in a circle. That's pretty fun. Let's see. It can look backwards. Look at this one, you guys. It's called Backwards, Forwards, Silly Rhyme. And all of the words are written backwards. I thought I'd write like this today. Can you read that? Can you figure out what the second sentence says? Because it seemed like fun. I want to see how far you guys could read this one. It's pretty funny. There are, look at this one, you guys. It's called A Dizzy Little Duzzle, and it is written, it starts right here. I'm a dizzy little duzzle, and I do the best I can. And it keeps going around and around. Can you read that and follow that pattern? There are beautiful poetry, nature poems. Look at this one. It's called Two Falling Flakes, and it looks like it's falling. Does that follow writing rules? Not a chance, you guys. This one is not in complete sentences. Red berries green, autumn. Red marries yellow, sunset. Red rides west, sundown. And it's talking about the color red out in nature. And it's so short and to the point, but it's beautiful. And then this one is in a swirl called Punishing Conditions. And there was one more I wanted to show you. Look at this one. Why leaves change color in the fall? And it is written in the shape of a tree. This one is such a silly one. It's called I'm Still Here in the Bathtub. And it's all of these poems that go to the tune of songs. So this one right here is called My Meals at Camp, and it goes to the tune of the wheels on the bus. The meals at my camp I can't explain. I've got pain in my brain. Can't tell if it's fish, meat, or chow mein. Each day at camp. Can you continue singing that? It's pretty silly. This one is super silly school poems. All of these poems about school, and look how short they can be. This one is so short. More than crunchy biscuits, more than juicy meat. Homework is the food that doggies love to eat. Really short and really silly. And then this one is all about outdoors. And this is actually the first one that we're going to look at today, and it's called Bubbles. This bubble I'm blowing, this bubble is growing, this bubble of ginormous size. It's as big as a plate, you can watch it inflate. This bubble will win me a prize. This bubble I'm blowing, this bubble keeps growing, this bubble does not want to stop. It's as big as a planet, can't get bigger, or can it? This bubble will never go pop. My brother likes to boast. He can blow the biggest bubbles, yes, but I can blow the most. So I'm hiding in the shade where it's cool and he can't see who is sending this parade of small bubbles, a whole fleet that is sailing right behind him up this steamy summer street. I put all of these into a document that is in Google Classroom and in your parents' email. So go ahead and check that out. So all of these poems that I showed you are there for reference, but you're going to go ahead and find this types of poetry packet. And this first page here is a poetry scavenger hunt. I would start with this poem. It's the first one in the document that I sent you guys because it has a lot of these things, probably the most that you need. So a pair of rhyming words. Can you find 2 words that rhyme? I can see a ton just in the first couple lines. Then there's actually a couple, a pair of rhyming words. There's a pair of rhyming words here, a pair of rhyming words here. So there's 3 of them. Careful word choice. So when it says careful word choice, this is like when we were talking about how fun or big or good or nice, those are not really 3rd grade words. We need to be more creative. So can you find any words that sound like they really thought about exactly how they wanted to write something? And instead of saying, this was fun, they used more elaborate words. And we could get into more detail about careful word choice, but I think that that is just finding something that is more detailed writing, I think would work for that. A line that appeals to your sense of sight. So what that means is there somewhere where it's talking about something you can see, that they're talking about their sight, what is in their vision. A comparison means is there anywhere in here where it is comparing to things? So let me kind of show you an example. So this bubble I'm blowing, this bubble is growing, this bubble of ginormous size, it's as big as a plate. That is a comparison. It is comparing this bubble to the size of a plate. So is there anywhere else in here where it is comparing this bubble, the size of it, to something else? Now this one is a line that appeals to your sense of hearing. Is there anywhere where it's talking about something you can hear? A rhyme pattern or scheme. So that's talking about what is the pattern. If I look at this and I read it, sometimes like these 2, every 2 lines, they rhyme. This bubble I'm blowing, this bubble is growing. But that's not the end of the pattern. So go, this bubble I'm blowing, this bubble is growing, this bubble of ginormous size. It's as big as a plate. You can watch it inflate. This bubble will win me a prize. And it has this pattern, it has this flow, and it kind of almost has like a sing-song about it. This one, every 3 lines is how the rhythm goes. But this one right here, we're familiar with poems like this where every other line, more than crunchy biscuits, more than juicy meat, homework is the food that doggies love to eat. Meet and eat. We're familiar with poems like this where they go in patterns of 2. This one is in lines of 3. Now this particular page right here, you guys, it might be a little difficult for some of you. So you might only be able to fill in the rhyming words because that's all that you are able to find. But if you are able to find the careful word choice, ooh, feeling words, is there any words in here that make you feel? Anything that you can feel, like love, happiness, joy, sadness. Start with this poem, but then there's all of those other poems that you can look at if you would like to continue hunting. But if you want to try your best with just this one poem, fill in as many boxes as you can and then move on, that is fine too. So that's your first job. Then we are going to start writing our own. So we're going to start with acrostic poems, and these are ones that you are probably the most familiar with. And it says, write your topic below, putting one letter in each box. You can do a name acrostic, or if you would like to be creative and do a different word like summer or spring or school, that is up to you. I'm going to do my name. So this one says, write your topic below, putting one letter in each box. Use a separate sheet of paper if your topic has more than 5 letters. So if you're doing your name and your name is more than 5 letters, you might need to use a separate piece of paper and just kind of extend it out here. I'm going to do just Mrs. B, because I don't have room for Mrs. Belinden. But then you're going to list off words that start with M, but R, S, B. With your name. Now I put in this sheet right here. These are character traits in alphabetical order. So you can go and look through them and see if any of them work. Now some of them are happy, some of them are not happy. So you need to be careful. Don't just pick a word that has that same letter. I want you to read it and make sure you understand what the word is. So for M, I could put musical. I could put mom. I could put married. I could look at this M. Mean. See, that's a word that we probably don't want. Mean. Mysterious, moody, meticulous. Those are really great words. I could use one of those. For R, let's see. If I'm having a hard time thinking, I'm going to go to this sheet. Is there any R's in here that might be good? Ooh. Reliable, relaxed, rambunctious, responsible, respectful. I like responsible. For S, ooh, skillful, silly, sensitive. Strong, like that word. I'm gonna put sarcastic I like to be sarcastic in a funny way, not a mean way. For B, I'm gonna go back and look at B. Oh, brave, brilliant. If you have other words that are not on the sheet, you can absolutely use them. But if you're having a hard time coming up with words, then you can use this sheet right here. Or you can, if you have somewhere else like a thesaurus or something that you want to look at them, that's fine too. So I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to put my name here because acrostic poems are vertical poems that use letters of your name to describe something. So then I'm going to choose which one of these do I want. I like musical. I only have one for R, so that's going to be responsible. Which one of these I like? Strong and brave. So I am finished writing my rough draft of my name, and now we're going to publish. So let me show you how we're going to do that. If you go to Google Classroom, I have made an assignment that is the poetry book. So let me show you how that works. You're going to have to go into Google Classroom if you have not already. So when you go into Google Classroom, there's an assignment that says My Poetry Book. It's going to ask you to make a copy, and then This is what it's gonna look like this, and these are the different poems that we will be doing over the next couple weeks. But today we're just going to, you're gonna put in your name. And then you're gonna go to Acrostic Poem, and you're going to put in your poem. Now, if you look at this, it's really small. The fun thing about doing things electronically is that you can go and change the font. So I can make it lobster, and then you get to change the size. That looks a lot better. I do like that. You can also change colors. So I'm actually going to change the color of each first letter so that my name stands out a little bit more. And then maybe I'll change the color of this too to be just a little bit lighter version of that. So this is the fun part about doing things online, guys, is you can be really creative with colors and sizes and shapes. So that's what you're gonna do. You're gonna come on, you're gonna publish this one, and that's it. And so then I will go on to your Google Classroom and I will look for your online poetry book. Good luck, guys. Let me know if you have any questions.